Good morning. I have the privilege and honor to have one of my clients, Nic Schneider, who's a pro goaltender, who's played in the American Hockey League, East Coast Hockey League, played in the Western Hockey League. I'm really honored because of all the clients that I've ever had the opportunity to work with, bar none, Nic is the hardest working guy I've ever met. He's gone through, you name it, every type of mental toughness in terms of injuries and all sorts of different illnesses that have set you back, and never got drafted into the Western Hockey League, never got drafted into the NHL, and playing pro. What I want to talk about is continuing work with what we've been working on in Goal magazine is breathwork. And one of the things you and I have talked a lot about, Nic, is what determines how we feel at any given time are three things. And the first thing is, what are we thinking about? What are we focusing on? Like right now, a lot of goalies, I think, could be in panic mode because they're thinking about or focusing on things that they don't have direct control, in terms of, is the season going to start? Where are they going to play? The second big thing that determines how we feel at any given time is our language. How are we describing things to ourselves? Like, oh, this is the worst thing possible ever happened. Or as opposed to, hey, this is a great opportunity. For what I can't do on the ice, there's lots of things that I can do off the ice that actually can, during this downtime, I can actually come back and be even a better, stronger goaltender. And then the third thing, which I really want to work on today and over these next few weeks, is these series of drills. The third thing that determines how we feel at any given time is our physiology. And emotion is created by motion, how we're moving, how we're breathing. And what I want to talk a lot about over the next few weeks is breath work. And I guess, I'm an old fart, but I know how breath work helped me, particularly, the night before the game, if there was a penalty shot, how breath work helped me. But I'm just very curious if you could talk to our audience today about, we've worked together for a long time, but how you've used breath work throughout your career, before practices, in practices, after practices, before games, during games, after games. And we're going to be showing you a whole bunch of new breath work that you've never even done before. But I just wanted to see if you could talk a little bit about how breath work has helped you.
Yeah, I think, growing up, obviously you teaching me at a young age. You start at home, in the chair, in your bed, just practicing, working on it, and you bring it into your practice. You can use it to hype yourself up to be more, energized, or if you get too energized and you need to calm down, you get a little too jittery, there's a way to bring it down as well. I found, especially going in the Western League and pro, when you're playing a ton of games, you really have to use that because you're playing so many games. Some games you feel great, some you'll be exhausted, and you have to find a way to create that energy within yourself. And some games, you're so excited for, you have to almost dial it back a little bit. And even practice is the same way. Minor hockey, you might have a tough day at school, and next thing you know, you have to go to practice and get something out of your practice. Well, you can use your breath to find a way to, get to that gear you need to make the most out of your time on the ice.
If you don't, what I've seen, Nic, is I've introduced breath work to a lot of goalies. Ironically, I had a player from Notre Dame, and I'd asked him about, he's feeling a lot of anxiety, and understandably so with the pandemic right now. Mm-hmm. But I asked him about how often he was doing his breath work, and he was telling me, he's only doing it once a week. Why do you think a lot of hockey players just don't really practice this very much? Why do you think that might be? Because obviously you've played at the pro level, and there's a lot of guys. There's some guys that do it a lot, and then others guys
don't even know about it.
They don't even know about it, or if they do, they don't even believe in it. I've always struggled to wonder why. When I mention breath work, a lot of people just almost kind of scoff at it. Like, it's really, that's going to have such a huge change. But Why do you think, that's, like maybe can you give us some specific times where you've really felt the breath work helped you in the Western Hockey League? Because I know you went to your first Western Hockey League camp, at a very young age, and maybe even like how you used your breath the very first time you ever played a pro game.
Yeah, I think, you and me discussed this a lot in my Western League days. Like for my first camp, it gives you confidence knowing you're doing something that a lot of people aren't doing, and knowing like, if one day you're tired, well, I know a way I can, get more energized.
Like a tool in the toolbox.
A tool in the toolbox, yeah. And some days, the first day of camp, you're all pumped up, you're ready to go, and you realize, hey, you know what? That's great, but I can't perform my best at this level, right? Also in the Western League, like you and me talked about it, one year I kind of struggled with early on in games. First, second shot I'd get scored on, and then I'd be great after that. Well, that's not a good way to start a game.
Right.
And so we figured out, hey, in my warm-up, your breaths, you got to be a little quicker. You got to get it more excited. You got to be more energized. And this is how you do it with these types of breaths. And then that helped, and that was no longer a problem.
And I'll go back. Why do you think a lot of goalies or just players in general don't really see the importance of this?
I think it's just like a stigma behind it. Like, 10 years ago, mental training. You don't want to do that. Why would you do that, right? It's the same thing. Like, I think as an athlete, you have to be open-minded to every, like you said, tool for the toolbox. Something might not seem like it'll help, but it will. Like, juggling for tracking. Who would have thought juggling would be something that'll help stopping pucks, right? And it does. It helps, tracking players. And same thing with breathing. Like, hey, you know what? You can control yourself without any, pills or, caffeine. You can do that all on your own, and you don't have to rely on anything else.
Can you maybe, I know it's a little while ago, but maybe can you tell me that very first game you ever played in the Western Hockey League, or, when you got the call to go to your first NHL camp, and maybe tell a little bit how you felt that day or even the night before, and how you were able to, again, I call it the state management triangle, where you're learning how to manage your state. And through breathwork, you can, manage your state. Can you maybe talk, because a lot of kids are obviously, when they're going into their tryouts, they're very nervous, they're anxious or excited. Can you maybe talk a little bit about how you felt those first few times, or going to your first NHL camp, and how you felt and how you use some of this?
Well, I know you talk about the tryouts, and I think of the first NHL camp, and you show up to Calgary for your fitness test, and you get to the rink, and all of a sudden you start, getting the shakes, right? And you realize, hey, I can't stop pucks when I'm shaking like that. And then so, okay, I'll slow it down, and then, the next day you get to the rink, you're a little more comfortable, but you still kind of jittery a little bit, right? And so always with that, I think that helped me bring it back. And I think that gives you an advantage as an athlete when, everyone's feeling those shakes. And if you're able to, set yourself apart from it, still be excited and nervous, because you should be, but at the same time, be able to put yourself in the right state to perform at your very best. I think that gave me a bit of a competitive advantage.
Can you tell me a little bit about how you've actually used breath work on the ice, like in practices or in games? Yeah,
like I remember how earlier on in this interview we talked about in the Western League at the start of games, I kind of had a hard time, almost waking up before the game started. You're playing 72 games in a year. It's easy for them.
Because you played a lot of games your last year for the Hitmen.
Yeah, a lot of games. And so it's easy to kind of be just kind of in, it's another game. You can't think that way and perform your best. And so one thing I found out how to do is you showed me like the quick breaths, like, you might have to do that 3 or 4 times in a period just to make sure, hey, I'm ready to go, I'm ready to play, and not be so relaxed and get caught off guard.
Cool. How about practices? Because that's, again, one of the common mistakes that whether it's ball drills, the ball work, I find that a lot of goalies do a lot of it just on the day of the game. Mm-hmm. But the criticism I've heard a lot in terms of breath work from a lot of the athletes that I've worked is, Johnny, this doesn't work. And my argument is, I'll say, okay, when do you do it? Do you do it on a consistent basis? Do you do it every day? Because you're not just going to do weight training the day of the game, right? You do weight training, consistently on a daily basis. I think one of the things, common mistakes that a lot of players or goalies do is they don't do the breath work on a daily basis. How have you been able to use it? You mentioned it earlier. You have to practice it at home and then get comfortable with it, and then slowly, bring it into your practice or into your game. What was that process for you?
Well, I remember when I was really young, I was probably 10 years old, and you started showing me there's the breathing CDs. Now there's so many tools out there, and I would do it before school, so I'd do it at 7 a.m. to 7:30, and that's when I would consistently do it every day. And eventually, like you said, there's a time where you feel comfortable that, you know what, I think I can bring this onto the ice with me, and it won't affect my focus on stopping the puck. Because at the end of the day, if you're focusing on breathing on the ice, it might affect with you stopping the puck. And so, then you slowly bring it into practice. And then after practice, I think it's easy to transition to a game because, you're on the ice, you're feeling how it feels like, how it makes you feel, like I said, on any given day. You're a kid, you're a long day at school. Well, you know what? You need to find a way to bring your energy up for practice, right? No different than, a game on a Friday in minor hockey or in any league, right? Now being older, I have a dog, and, you're up late with the dog one night because he's sick or whatever, and the next afternoon game you have to play.
Right.
And you have to find a way, hey, how am I going to, get the job done, do my very best.
Have you, and I'm just asking, Nick, if you found any type of breathing exercises prior to going to sleep to help you to just kind of unwind and allow you to get out of your head and get a good night's sleep so you can perform the following day?
Yeah, I know, I don't really have an issue on a normal night, but on a game night after I play, a 7 o'clock game, you get home and you sometimes can't sleep till 2 or 3 in the morning. And if you're playing the next day, that's probably not the rest someone needs. So I did find that doing it at night on those game nights really helped me at least just relax and kind of clear your head, because it's easy after a game to go through it almost again and again and again in your head, and what you did well, what didn't go so well, and it just really helps relax and try and get that good night's sleep so you're ready to go the next day.
And just finally, Nick, I guess, have you used the breath work on the bus? Have you used the breath work, on the airplane? Have you ever used those things? Because I think a lot of times that's why I try to encourage guys is there's the beauty of breath work is you can do it anywhere, anytime, any place. Have you used it, on the bus or on the airplane?
Well, you can, like you said, you can use it anywhere. It's very convenient. And it's also something that no one even really knows you're doing it. You can do it anytime. You can be walking down the street and you can do it, or you can do it, like you said, at home, on the bus, at school. I remember at school I would do it when I was in junior high and high school, when I maybe should focus on other things as well, but I would incorporate that in. And I just think, like you said, it's not like you have something huge on your head that makes you stand out. Like breathing, you can do anywhere and at your own convenience, and no one really knows about it. So there's nothing, I don't know, I just think it's a great tool that you can do anywhere.
Perfect. So one of the things I have a little note here with myself, but what I want goalies to understand, and Nick, we're going to get right into it, is I think breath work has some real key things. One you've talked a lot about is being able to manage your hype number. And that we talk about, 0, you're asleep, and 10, you've had 900 Red Bull. And there's so many different breathwork exercises where you can get into your ideal performance state. And you've talked about it. Some days you need to be more pumped up. Other days you need to be, more calmer. And I think one thing I just want to emphasize, you've heard Nick talk a lot about that he needed the breathwork to get more pumped up. That might have worked for Nick, but just because that works for Nick, again, there's no cookie cutter. There's no one size that fits all. Some other goalies might need breath work to bring themselves down. Heart rate variability, box breathing, that might work better for them. The other thing that we're going to learn a lot about is better blood flow, better blood circulation to the brain, to the muscles. How do you think that would impact a goalie, if they're getting more oxygen to the brain or more oxygen to the muscles, Nic?
Well, I think more oxygen to the brain would you can process faster. And even with your muscles, you're loose, you're ready to react when something comes. You're not so tense and waiting, and a shot comes and you're a little late. You're waiting for it, and that's just my thoughts on that.
And then the other thing, just to go back, is better focus. So again, if I'm using my breath as an anchor, you're gonna see a lot of times kids don't, and a lot of the kids that I work with, when we say feel the breath, they really have a difficult time with that concept. And the exercise that we're going to show will really emphasize that felt sensation of the breath. And when your mind wanders, which it will, you can use your breath as an anchor to work on this recognized return skill. We've talked a lot about that, where your mind wanders and bring it back. Have you had situations where you've been able to use your breath work, mind wandered, brought it back?
Yeah, I feel like those situations happen like 20 or 30 times a game where, you can catch yourself thinking of something, or even in the game that doesn't matter. And like you said, when you were mentioning that, it kind of made me think of it right away, is that, when you're thinking about your breath, you're thinking about, like you said, you're going to explain it, but like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in and out. Basically, when you're thinking about that, it does bring you back in the present, and you essentially forget about what you were thinking of before that didn't matter.
Right.
And, at the end of the day, you're still thinking, but it does help ground. I know it helps ground me in the present during the game.
And that's interesting, because that's the next one is learning how to be in the moment, learning how to be present. And we've talked about the goalie mantra: I have no future, I have no past, my goal is to make the present last. I'm right here, right now. And I always joke about it, but I'm serious, is that you can't feel the breath in the past, you can't feel the breath in the future. The only time and place you can feel the breath is in that moment. And also, when we're doing proper functional breathing, we're learning how to get out of our head and getting into our body. How has that been beneficial? Like, in a game when all of a sudden your mind's wandering to a whole bunch of things that are not important, how have you been able to just, like you said, ground yourself and bring it back?
Like I said, I just think it's with the breathing, and even if you have to count it out, in for 4, out for 4, or in for 6, out for 6, I just find that that's like one of the most effective ways to, if you're off track, or maybe your emotions are getting the best of you in a game, that's a way to get grounded. I think that's probably one of the more important things that I do with my breathing. It's just it's so easy to think of something, or something just pops up in your head and you start thinking about it, and it can just bring you right back. I think that's probably one of the most effective tools for that.
And we've talked about the recognize, regroup, refocus, the 3 R's. Like, how have you used your breath work to be able to just let go of a play on the ice, or whether it be a goal or somebody crashing your net? Instead of being stuck in your head about that, how have you used your breath work to just be able to let that go and get back into the moment?
Well, the way I found most effective and most consistent is just a routine with it. Like, whether it's between whistles, like every time there's a whistle, something happened. Whether, like you said, there's a goal, or someone crashed into you, or maybe you made a great save. Just those routines just helps it stay consistent in bringing you back to the present, right? And those whistles happen all the time in a game.
And the other one we talked about, quality of sleep. This is where a lot of the new exercises that I've learned, really improving not just the quantity but the quality of your sleep, getting that good, deep, restorative sleep. How critical is sleep at the pro level?
Oh yeah, it's huge. It's kind of funny with all the, like the watches out there and stuff like that. You're thinking you're getting 8 hours of sleep, and you throw one of these sleep watches on, and you're actually getting 5.
Right.
And so, like you said, there's breathing, or there's all these different techniques you can use to get more of an effective sleep. Because, when I first got my watch, I thought I was getting 8 hours, and I was getting just over half of that, which is a big deal.
And there's lots of different companies using different things to measure the quality of sleep, but one of the measurements is heart rate variability, where we can now, through biofeedback, can show how through your breath work you can control your heart rate variability and, in fact, increase it. The final one I want to talk about, Nic, is this mind-body connection. How do you think we can use breath work to build that mind-body connection?
Can you rephrase that?
So, for example, what we're going to learn today, we're going to start off, we're working on synchronizing. I'm a big believer, what I've learned through the Oxygen Advantage breath work is that the mind, like a lot of times you'll go to your goalie coach, okay, and then you'll go to a sports psychologist, but never, these guys don't meet.
Makes sense, yeah.
And they treat it as almost separate entities.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm a big believer is that the mind and the body are so intricately interwoven. Mm-hmm. And so when we start to do some of the exercises, we're going to learn how to integrate functional breathing equals functional movement, right? If we're not breathing properly, then all of our mechanics can get out of whack. And then we start to open up holes, and a lot of the times through breath work, we can get that mind-body connection more established. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I think like what you were saying then, I take it as, like we talked about earlier, how, get used to the breath work at home and then transfer it into practice, into goalie sessions. And then when you're comfortable with that, into the game.
Right.
Which, like I said, it's at home is the big learning curve. As soon as you get it into practice and then into a game, I think it's a lot quicker than just learning the skill to start.
And you and I have talked a lot about this just to finish off, and then we'll get right into the exercises. But what I want to emphasize for a lot of the kids at home is, Nic, have you ever taken a brand new pair of pads and used them, or a brand new glove in a game?
No, you always use it a couple times.
Right. Why?
Just want to feel used to it. You want to, make it feel like your own kind of thing.
Right. And so that's the one thing with all these exercises, what I want to emphasize is it's like breaking in a brand new piece of equipment. If you got a glove or a chest protector or a pair of pads, you need to break it in at home, and then eventually you're going to wear it in practice. And then once it feels like it's part of you, then that's when you would bring it into a game situation. And with the breath work, that's one thing we want to really work on is this is the perfect time. We have all the time right now through the lockdown where we can really work on bringing this skill, working on it at home. And then when we do eventually get back onto the ice, it's going to feel more natural.